The draft class isn't as defined as some of the other ones in the past because they didn't have a number one. Traded up a little bit in number two to get Williams. But did you sense that there's a sleeper in this draft, that maybe number 7 could have been number 4 or anything like that?
Yeah, I mentioned Donnie-Lewis, and he's an interesting guy because he had an injury, and he's a guy that might have gone earlier in the draft were it not for that injury. It's a foot injury. We'll have to see how he bounces back. He couldn't participate this weekend. He was just on the side doing work, so he's an interesting guy to watch. And Drew-Forbes, I think, is an interesting guy too. They're going to let him start out at tackle. He got to play tackle this weekend just because of the numbers game. They'll probably let him start out there and move him inside if they need to. He might be a 2 or 3 year project, but I think he's a really interesting guy.
He's the one Sports Illustrated has been following.
Yeah, Prospect X.
What did they see?
I don't know what they saw. They saw a guy that was a small school guy, I guess, who went to 2 different pro days. They weren't really sure where he was going to go, just sort of an interesting off-the-radar prospect.
Did I read this right, that there's a couple of players that Dorsey didn't talk to, and yet we hear about how thorough they go and how they vet the process and all that, and it turns out I think 2 guys they never even spoke to.
Yeah, well, and Takitaki was one of those guys. Yeah. He was off a lot of, I've been talking to his friends, his family, some of his coaches for a story, and they didn't expect the Browns to take him. They expected the Rams to maybe take him at 79, and when that didn't happen, and 80 came up, they didn't expect the Browns to take him because
of his
they
past?
didn't have contact with him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the Browns took him. And I think it was a situation where the Browns were really impressed with him at the Combine.
Right.
You get that interview, and they said, you know what, we're not going to tip our hand. We're going to stay out of the way and just take this guy at 80.
See what we saw.
Yeah.